At the end of the 2025 season, is it possible for Sherrone Moore, Bryce Underwood, Rayshon Benny, and the Michigan Wolverines to hoist the 2025 national championship? Is it possible for them to hoist that trophy? They're plus 3,500 right now in odds per FanDuel. That's 11th to win it all. They're 10th in preseason S&P Plus and 17th in preseason FPI. So Michigan's at least viewed as a college football playoff contender. A surefire one at that. Not surefire to make it, but certainly in the mix entering the 2025 season per power ratings, per the odds. That's an encouraging sign and an encouraging step. But getting to the playoffs, now that there's 12 available slots, is vastly different from actually being capable of winning it all. And we've seen this. We saw it last season. Was SMU ever winning it all? No. Even Tennessee. Tennessee was never winning it all. They were not capable of winning it all. Was Boise State or Arizona State ever going to win it all? No, absolutely not. And Clemson wasn't going to either, at least with the staff they had. Maybe if they had a better staff with the talent that was on their roster, then they could have. But that's a topic for another day. You see my point. I want to start off by looking at their 2025 roster and a little bit of an overview with that, because that's where you have to start. If you don't have the roster to win it all, even if you have an elite staff, say Mark D'Antonio, Michigan State, 2023 Washington, I think that 2022 TCU had an underrated staff. I think that Rhett Lashley at SMU is a great staff right now. I think even Brent Key at Georgia Tech has had some pretty great staffs. Oregon State and Michigan State under Jonathan Smith, for example. Even if you have elite staffs, if you do not have the talent, you will not win it all. Before we resume this segment, please take a few seconds of your time to make sure you have liked the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for the channel and for any team podcasts and playlists linked in the description, and also comment your thoughts down below in the comment section and join my Discord server via the description. All of those things I just asked you to do are completely free, and they sign you up for things related to my channel, or they don't sign you up for anything. No cost to you, and all the benefit to you because we release daily college football content here on College Football with Sam. If you want to support the channel monetarily, sign up for a YouTube membership or check any other links in the description for my merchandise store and Patreon page. Thank you very much, and let's get back to the segment. You just won't. So, does Michigan have that talent? Well, they return 13 starters, 8 on offense, 5 on defense, and they bring back 65% of their 2024 production, which is 24th. Michigan is around 50% in blue chip ratio. That means about half of their roster is made up of 4- and 5-star players. So they're pushing that. If you look at transfers and adjust the rosters for transfers, they're just under that 50% threshold for the blue chip ratio. If you just look at simply every recruiting class since 2022, well, they're above that. But I think it's a little bit more realistic to look at the transfers, especially since Michigan brought in a lot of bodies, and only a handful of them were quality. A lot of them were depth pieces. Michigan returns their head coach and defensive coordinator, Sherrone Moore and Wink Martindale, along with 9 assistant coaches, including Lou Esposito, including Lamar Morgan, Brian Jean Mary, Newsome, the offensive line coach, Tony Alford, the running backs coach. They're 14.6 points superior to the average team in FPI, per FPI, which is where that 17th placement comes from. And they're viewed as 21.5 points superior to the average college football team per S&P Plus. That's from Bill Connolly. That explains their 10th placement in his preseason power ratings. And their strength of schedule varies from high 20s to high 30s in terms of placement. FPI has it as the 29th toughest. S&P Plus has it as the 38th toughest. Pretty favorable schedule, given the talent they have, the returning production they have, and their preseason power rating. So that's an encouraging start, you would certainly think. Moving on to what Michigan needs to do, because Michigan's team last year was nowhere close to winning it all. You'd have to change multiple fundamental things about Michigan's nature in 2024. Number 1, superior quarterback play. Number 2, you'd probably want to have at least a wide receiver 1. Number 3, you'd want to have a better staff last year for Michigan, one that knew the team and knew what game plans they could draw up with the roster they had, and not last year's staff who was clearly figuring things out on the fly until about November when they finally were able to settle down a little bit. Michigan in 2025 needs superior quarterback play. They had an average passer rating, team passer rating, of an 111.9, which was 121st. They were dead last, 134th in FBS, in yards per catch at 8.8. So they need better receivers, or at least better receiver involvement. Maybe if the receivers don't get better, you need some amazing scheme to get them open, or a quarterback who can perfectly place the ball so at least, they can have an opportunity to occasionally break out here and there and make big plays. Michigan also needs to, and quarterback play and better receiver involvement will help this a lot, but so will overall better assessing your depth and having superior development here. Which Michigan's development, not saying it's bad, it's just an unknown right now. They need to play in fewer close games and pull away more. They had a 5-3 record. 5-3 record in close games last year. And that's counting the Washington and Illinois game where they technically lost by double digits, but it was a close game in the fourth quarter. I like to count those. It's like with Illinois. Illinois wasn't 5-1 in close games. They were 6-2. The Penn State game was close, although I think that Penn State really dominated them for much of that game. It was still within one score for much of the game. And then that was one of their close losses along with Minnesota, and their win over Michigan was a close win. Even though it was 21-7 the final, it was a one-score game for much of the matchup. So counted that as a close game. Michigan had a winning record there. It's typically not a good sign for improvement. I think that's offset by Michigan's passing attack and offensive coordinator being historically bad. But regardless, fewer close games, the better. You don't typically have a winning record in those every year in a row unless your coaching staff is elite. That's another instance where Michigan needs to improve. That involves with talent usage, putting players in a position where they can win and being good at that. Michigan was not good at that last year. For example, they lost 5 games with 3 first-round picks. Is that national title caliber? No. And they also need better offensive tackle play because when you allow 86 pressures at the rate in which you pass the ball per game, you didn't pass a whole lot, and you still allowed almost 100 pressures in 13 games. That's not good enough. It's not good enough at all. And this schedule is full of opportunities too. So we talked about what Michigan has coming back and how they need to improve in these specific areas, and I think they've addressed some of those. We'll look at this schedule here. Michigan is plus 210 to reach the playoffs and plus 1,000 to win the Big Ten for a reason. It's not just because they're power rated high and the odds makers are expecting Michigan to improve. Week 1, they play New Mexico. Week 2, they play at Oklahoma. Week 3, they host Central Michigan. Week 4, they play at Nebraska. Off the bye in Week 5, they host Wisconsin in Week 6, play at USC Week 7, host Washington Week 8, play at Michigan State Week 9, host Purdue in Week 10, and you got that neutral field game versus Northwestern Week 12, play at Maryland Week 13, and then you host Ohio State in Week 14. There is a chance, it's a slim one, there is a chance where Michigan is favored in all of the games they play. Slim chance. There is a pretty good chance that Michigan's favored in at least 9 of their 12 games, if not 10 of 12. Their most likely games where they will be an underdog is Oklahoma on the road Week 2 and Ohio State at home Week 14. That road trip to USC, I think Michigan should be an underdog, but we'll figure that out when we get there. October is a ways away still. It is a schedule full of opportunity, and I think Michigan, with this schedule, they can win several games. They can go 11-1 or 12-0. They can. Now, again, given the concerns, they could also go 7-5 again, or maybe things totally bottom out and they go 6-6. But looking at this roster and this staff, wide receiver is an obvious weakness. Offensive tackle is a weakness. It's not as obvious as receiver because Michigan does have talent there and returning production. So tackle could be a strength, I think, unlike wide receiver, but it's still questionable entering this year, so I'll tab that as a weakness. DB depth is an area I'm concerned with. Michigan's very deep at the defensive front. They're I'd say deep on the offensive line. The question is just how good are their starters there? You know, there's a difference between depth and then straight up being good. You can be mediocre, but then have plenty enough depth to not have a drop-off if your mediocre unit gets injured, for example. I think they have depth at tight end. Do not have depth at quarterback, but typically you don't need that all the time. And I also think they have some depth at running back. DB, I think, is a concern there. You have some good starters, but some shaky starters as well. And then beyond that, if they suffer an injury to key players, I think there's a drop-off there. And game management by the staff is also something I'm a bit concerned about. But everything else, and this includes quarterback, because I'm pretty high on Bryce Underwood. Why did I say Bryce Young? Bryce Underwood, I think, are going to be strengths for this team. And the seniority and the age help too. That's why I think they're at least going to go 500, 7-5 or better. And if everything goes right, they could go undefeated and have a year that Oregon did last year, where you win the Big Ten, get a top seed in the playoffs, but you probably don't win it all because your power ratings and potential-wise are not the best team in America. They're also plus 1,200 to go undefeated, and their toughest game is Ohio State. That's the only game where if both teams play to their absolute ceiling for the year, that Michigan won't win. If Michigan plays to their potential, if everyone in college football were to play to their potential, their absolute potential, and they all played each other, Michigan would probably go 11-1 and lose to Ohio State. That's how it would work. So the Wolverines, while I certainly wouldn't favor them to go undefeated, I think that they have greater odds at doing that than some people anticipate. But regardless of that, I don't think this team is likely to win it all. It's improbable. I would not give them a 1% chance of winning it all or greater. I did list them as a dark horse national championship candidate in a previous video, but I would pull back on that now. You should never say never, but so much would have to go perfectly for Michigan in order for them to win it all. So Penn State, Texas, these are teams that can do what Michigan wants to do, but better at almost every position. You're probably not beating those teams. Ohio State's more questionable, I'd say, than both of those teams in the defensive line, so it will be easier to establish game control against them. But Ohio State also has receivers that you will have a tough time guarding. You get what I'm saying. Michigan has guarded them well every time they've played, but they've still been able to get plays. And Ohio State's defense is good enough to where they could certainly hold Michigan's offense to minimal points, for example. Ohio State's a little bit of a different case because it's also a rivalry game, so let's just take them out of the equation. Even if Michigan mentally owns Ohio State, and even if Ohio State is also down for that year and therefore they're not going to win it all either, you still got to get through Penn State. You got to get through Texas. You have to get through Oregon. And Oregon, that game with Oregon last year with a better staff and quarterback could have been a Michigan win, but it wasn't. And that's a lot going right for Michigan. That's La La Land. That's fantasy. Right now, Michigan has questions at staff. They have questions at so many different roster positions. I would say lightning in a bottle. If lightning in a bottle happens, they can win it all. And even most teams can't say that. But realistically, it's improbable. It's probably not possible, again, unless lightning in a bottle happens. And that really doesn't count here. They are not one of these teams that I would tab as a potential national champion. So again, never say never, but so much. The schedule remaining as light as I think it is. The roster and every position panning out in a positive way probably includes Underwood being an alien in year one and a top 5 quarterback. Not exactly out of the gate, but at least at the end of the year. Michigan's receivers emerging and game management improving. That is so much to go right in one single season after we've seen some pretty negative evidence that contradicts the idea that Michigan right now is a national title contender from last year. I think Michigan's at least a year, if not maybe 2 years away from being a team that can hoist the national championship trophy. Thank you for watching College Football with Sam. Make sure that you've liked the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for the channel and team playlists and podcasts in the description, join the free Discord server where we talk college football 24/7, and have commented your thoughts down below. Check out the description for any ways you can support the channel monetarily, Everything else I've asked you to do is completely free, and your support means the world to me. We're trying to become the next big thing on college football YouTube. 6-figure subscribers, maybe 1 million one day. I think we can do that. And also check out any videos or playlists, anything in these columns right here, where there will be videos and playlists. Yeah, you get the point. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one.